Captain Reed felt the cold metal of his pilot's chair press against his back as he drifted above the ruined station, heart pounding like a drum in a silent hall. His scout ship's engines hummed softly, barely louder than a whisper, and the faint glow of distant stars gleamed through the viewport. All around him lay shadow and silence, no chatter on comms, no life signs except one. A single blip pulsed on his sensor screen. His breath caught. He flipped switches with deliberate calm, though his fingers trembled. The station hung before him like a fallen giant, its outer hull scarred by time and neglect. Reed guided the ship down toward a yawning docking bay that yowed open like a gaping maw. Each meter closer felt like falling into a deep cave where anything could live. His pulse raced an echo in his ears louder than any alarm. He locked the docking clamps with a hiss, and power bled from his hands. Yet he forced himself to move. The airlock door slid open on creaking hinges, and cold light spilled into the bay. Reed stepped onto the metal floor, boots echoing in the vast chamber. The lights flickered, shadows danced on fractured walls, and every footstep felt like thunder in a grave. He carried only a handheld torch and his sidearm standard issue for a scout that weighed heavy at his side. He tapped the torch on, and its beam cut a cold line through darkness. No drones, no robots, no signs of the crew he surveyed on his scanner. Just the one life sign, steady, faint, but alive. He followed the beam through a tangle of corridors. Wires hanging like vines above his head, floor plates torn away to reveal the dark void beneath. Reed's breaths came quick, each exhale misting in the chill air. He pressed onward, the scanner's single beep guiding him like a heartbeat. Then the corridor curved, leading him into a shattered atrium where dust motes hung in the light. At its center stood her. She was tall, well over 7 feet, her skin a pale green that shimmered in the torch's beam. Her dress, once white, now clung to her curves in tatters, torn by something fierce or desperate. Long white hair fell around her shoulders, framing a face both alien and achingly familiar. Her eyes glowed faintly, a soft green light that pulsed with each breath. She stood motionless, hands relaxed at her sides, watching him with a calm that made his own nerves flare. Reed froze, torch beam wavering. He lifted his scanner, but it rattled in his grip. The life sign was hers alone, silent, powerful. Took a breath, steadying himself. Voice came out rough, shaky. "Hello?" The word felt wrong in this empty place. No echo answered, only her gaze. She tilted her head slightly, as though listening to something he could not hear. A distant clank made Reed jerk his head toward a side corridor. He raised his hand to point his torch that way, but when he turned back, she had moved closer to close. His throat tightened. She stood just beyond the edge of the light, her shape sharp against the gloom. He could see the faint rise and fall of her chest, the slow grace of her breathing. His scanner beeped faster. Now her life sign strong and steady. Reed swallowed, taking a cautious step back. Then his boot hit a loose panel. The clang echoed down the hall like a gunshot. He spun toward her, hand tightening on his sidearm. But she did not advance. She only watched. Her glowing eyes held no malice-only curious calm. Reed's mind raced. Was she friend or foe? Beneath his fear, a pull of fascination tugged him forward. He wanted to know more, whatever danger she held. He raised his sidearm but kept it lowered, uncertain. The alien woman lifted one hand, palm open, in a gesture oddly gentle an invitation. Or a warning. Reed's heart pounded, forced himself to lower his weapon further. The scanner's beep slowed, matching her calm rhythm. His breathing eased just enough to think. He stepped forward, wary, torch and scanner both trained on her. The station lights flickered overhead. A distant alarm shuddered in the vents, then died. Silence returned. Reed and the alien stood facing each other in the broken atrium, two shapes. In the gloom, his pulse slowed to a steady thrum, curiosity and caution in equal measure. He swallowed again and tried words. "Who are you?" His voice sounded small. She did not answer in any language he knew. Instead, her eyes pulsed brighter, and she tilted her head. A soft sound emerged, a hum, like a distant wind through tall grass. The hum vibrated through Reed's bones, gentle yet insistent. He felt drawn to her not by fear, but by something new and strange, like a question forming in his mind. He took another step, then the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the atrium. Reed's torch flickered, dying. He was alone in the dark, alone with the alien. His breath froze in his chest. The last thing he heard was her hum, soft but powerful, echoing in the blackness around him. His hand found the sidearm's grip, fingers closing, but he did not fire. He could not. He waited, heart hammering, wondering what would come next. Asterisk read. Stumbled backward as the alien stepped closer, her glowing eyes fixed on him like twin beacons in a storm. His torch beam wavered in his shaking hand, casting long, jittery shadows on the walls. He pressed himself against a cracked bulkhead, heart hammering in his chest. She moved with a quiet grace, her bare feet making no sound on the metal floor. Every step she took seemed measured, deliberate, an invitation and a warning all at once. He swallowed hard and tried to steady his breath. The scanner still beeped, the single life sign glowing bright on his handheld display. It was her, alone, alive. He forced himself to look at her body, the strange smooth curves of her hips, at the soft green skin that seemed almost to glow in the dim light. Her dress fell in rags around her form, revealing more than it hid. Reed felt a flush rise to his cheeks. Then, without a word, she lifted one hand and reached out. Reed's chest tightened. He raised his free hand in a weak salute but kept his weapon lowered. The alien's fingers brushed the side of his helmet, tracing a slow line along the visor. Reed froze, his body locked in both fear and fascination. The touch felt cool and wet like slippery pasta sliding over glass. He swallowed, his mouth dry. As the sensation traveled down his spine, he should have wrenched away, shouted a warning, fired his weapon, but he couldn't move. Her skin pressed lightly against his suit, and he felt the electric hum of her life energy, an energy that seemed to pulse in time with her glowing eyes. A soft slurping noise echoed in the corridor, faint but unmistakable. Reed's knees trembled. He wanted to pull away, but he was rooted to the spot, drawn toward her like metal to a magnet. The alien woman pressed closer, her hand moving down his chest, over the ribbed surface of his flight suit. The slurp sounded again, wet, deep, almost hungry. Reed closed his eyes, his mind screaming a warning he could not hear. He pictured firing his weapon, blasting her back into the darkness, but when he opened his eyes, she was already half inside his personal space. Her body low, the dress riding high, her hips angling toward him. Reed's free hand darted to his sidearm, but his fingers brushed only empty air. The scanner slipped from his belt and clattered to the floor. The sound seemed to snap him briefly back to reality. He lunged to retrieve it, heart racing, but the alien caught his arm with surprising strength. Her grip was firm, yet somehow tender. He felt her other hand brush his thigh, cool, soft, almost gentle. Then the slurp came again, louder, closer, as though she tasted the air around him. He jerked away, stumbling over loose floor grating, and crashed against the opposite wall. He fell to his knees, chest heaving, torch rolling free of his grasp. Darkness swallowed him for a moment, then he scrambled to his feet and landed back on his boots. He drew his weapon with a trembling hand and leveled it at her chest. The weapon's light sight flickered. His finger hovered on the trigger. "Stay back," he barked, voice cracking. The words echoed, harsh and hollow. The alien woman paused, her form framed by the flickering station light. For a heartbeat, time froze. Then she lifted her head and hummed a low, melodic sound that shook the air. Reed's ears rang, his mind raced. The hum felt like a siren. Song, soft and dangerous, tugging at his thoughts. He struggled to focus, to remember his mission, investigate, record, report, not engage with strange life forms in forbidden places. Yet every instinct in his body told him to lower the weapon, to reach out, to understand her. He swallowed, his throat raw. He raised the scanner and held it between them. The life sign pulsed steady, bright green matching her eyes. He took a cautious step forward. She responded in kind, taking a step toward him as well. The distance between them closed, the humming growing louder. Reed swallowed again. He could feel the heat of her body through his suit, the wet slurp of air as she neared. He closed his eyes for a second, just long enough to steady his nerves. When he opened them, the alien was only inches away. Her breath was cool against his helmet. Felt the soft press of her lips. No, not lips, but her strange upper organ brushing against the visor. Then the slurp sounded at his ear, deep and urgent, like she tried to draw him into herself. Reed's heart thundered as he realized she meant no harm. Her actions were not attack, but communication. Strange connection sparked, alive and glowing. Between them, he exhaled slowly, lowering his weapon until it pointed at the floor. The scanner slipped from his grip again, but he did not reach for it. Then he raised a hand, palm open, meeting her glowing gaze. Her eyes flickered brighter. In response, her hum deepened, and the air around them shimmered with unseen energy. In that moment, Reed sensed the station's broken walls and flickering lights fall away. All that remained was him and the alien, bound by curiosity and fear, standing in the vast emptiness of space. And as her soft glow bathed him in green light, he knew that nothing in his life would ever be the same. Reed stumbled backward as the alien's green glow faded, leaving him blinking in the dim corridor light. His chest heaved, and every nerve sang with confusion and dread. He kept his weapon low at his side, unable to raise it fully. The alien stood mere steps away, her body relaxed, her eyes softer now, as if she wondered what had startled him. Reed's mind raced. He had expected violence, but this felt different. He tried to speak, voice rough in his throat. "I don't know what you are." His words sounded small and frantic. The alien tilted her head, lips parting in a gentle hum that rolled through the air like a breeze over still water. Reed swallowed, catching a whiff of something faintly sweet, like jasmine on the wind. He took another step forward, uncertain, and she did not pull back. Around them, station walls bore scars gouges from long-ago fights, scorch marks from forgotten fires. Yet here, in this broken place, he felt drawn to her warmth. He raised his free hand, fingers trembling, and reached out slowly. She did not move away. Her own hand lifted, slender green fingers brushing his gloved palm. A spark of static crackled at the point of touch, startling him, and he jerked back, but only half. Her hum rose, a chorus of low notes that seemed to speak without words. Reed closed his eyes, letting the sound wash over him. Images flickered in his mind, distant stars, drifting spores, swirling nebulae. For a moment, he felt weightless, untethered from his fear. When he opened his eyes, the alien's gaze held his, and he understood she meant no harm. His breath steadied. He lowered his weapon completely. The scanner lay forgotten on the floor, its green blip still pulsing. Reed bent to pick it up, then paused. He let the device rest against his hip and cleared his throat. "I'm Captain Reed," he managed. "I came to this station on a rescue survey. I thought it was empty." He hesitated, then added, "Who are you?" The alien's lips curved into what might have been a smile. She reached up, gently brushing a strand of white hair from her face, and her eyes flickered as if lighting up a message. Reed watched in fascination as patterns of light played across her skin-thin bands of glowing green that ran along her. Arms dipped across her collarbone and vanished beneath her torn dress. Each pulse matched the beat of her humming tone. He stepped closer, heart thundering, and ran a hand over his stubbled chin. "You're beautiful," he said the words, slipping out before his mind caught up. The alien's hum softened, as though she recognized the kindness behind his blunt words. Reed felt a warmth bloom in his chest. He couldn't explain a tan alien life form stranded on a dying station. And yet she felt more alive than anything he had ever known. A sudden shudder rippled through the station, making overhead lights flicker and a distant bulkhead groan. Reed glanced up, worry blooming again. "We shouldn't stay here," he said, voice urgent. "This place is unstable." He reached for her hand, cautious but sure. Will you come with me for a heartbeat? She hesitated. Then she nodded once, firmly, her glowing eyes steady. Reed felt relief wash over him. He offered his other hand, and she slipped hers into his. Her touch was cool and slick, like smooth marble warmed by sunlight. He squeezed gently, and she squeezed back, a silent promise. They turned to move down the corridor, together, Reed leading, her following, but as he stepped over a fallen pipe, his foot caught on something soft. He stumbled, and the alien reached out, her hand sliding across his back to steady him. The contact sent a gentle vibration through him, like a soft purr in his spine. He caught himself and managed a shaky grin. She tilted her head, humming low, her eyebrows rising in curiosity. They reached a junction where the corridor split into 3 paths. Reed raised his scanner, hoping the others would still work, but only static filled the display. He sighed. We'll have to go by sight, he said, voice uncertain. She hummed again, stepping close to him as if offering guidance. Reed pointed down the right-hand corridor, where faint emergency lights flickered, and motioned for her to follow. She inclined her head, and they pressed on. The further they walked, the more Reed noticed the station's lifeless halls begin to feel alive again. Her presence made the flickering lights steadier, the silence less empty. Each time he glanced at her, her glowing patterns pulsed brighter, as if she drew strength from him. Reed marveled at the connection to beings from different worlds, walking together through darkness, forging a fragile trust. Ahead, a low rumble shook the station floor. Dust fell from the ceiling, and a section of bulkhead groaned. Reed's heart leaped. Hold on, he warned, grabbing the alien's hand. They ran together, boots clanging on metal, her hum building into a crescendo. They rounded a corner just as a ceiling panel crashed down, missing them by inches. Reed skidded to a halt, chest pounding. He looked at her, wide-eyed. She reached out, brushing his cheek with the back of her hand, and he felt her glow warm him. Reed swallowed, the terror of near-death fading into awe. He nodded once, determined. Let's get out of here, he said, voice steady. She hummed in agreement, and together they sprinted on 2 unlikely allies bound by curiosity, fear, and something deeper stirring between their hearts. Reed led the way through the crumbling corridor, every muscle tense as the station trembled. Around them, the alien woman followed close, her green glow pulsing in time with her soft hum. Dust drifted down from cracked vents, and sparks flickered from exposed wiring overhead. Reed glanced back. She met his eyes and gave a small nod, a quiet promise that they would face whatever came next together. They turned a corner and froze. Half the hallway lay in ruins, a gaping hole where the floor had collapsed into darkness below. The emergency lights cast long shadows on jagged edges. Reed swallowed hard. One misstep and they could both fall. He knelt by the edge and shone his torch down into the void. The darkness seemed endless, broken only by the faint glow of stray wires hanging like roots. He straightened and looked at her. She stepped forward, lifting her hand as if to test the air. Reed frowned. Her skin glimmered in the flashlight's beam, revealing tiny veins that pulsed with light. He tapped his cums, but there was only static. No help was coming. He turned back to the gap, eyes scanning for another way. This one. He saw it. A thin maintenance pipe arcing across the chasm, its metal surface slick with coolant. It looked slippery and weak, but it was their only path. Reed pointed to the pipe and swallowed. The alien watched him, head tilted as if asking if he could trust it, gave a firm nod. Reed stepped onto the pipe first, arms out for balance. His boots made a soft clank with each cautious step. The pipe bent under his weight, groaning low. He held his breath and edged forward. Halfway across, he glanced back, her face illuminated by her own glow, eyes steady. He offered a faint smile. She reached out and he took her hand. Her skin felt cool against his gloved palm. Together they inched forward, every step a small victory. When they reached solid ground again, Reed let out a shaky laugh. The alien hummed in what sounded like amusement, her glow brightening. He patted her hand, relieved. We make a good team, he whispered. She tilted her head and offered her hand again. Reed took it, grateful for her quiet strength. They pressed on until the corridor opened into a maintenance bay. Flickering strip lights revealed scattered tools, overturned carts, and a half-open cargo hatch. Reed's torch beam fell on a row of defense drones and stand-besleek machines with metal claws and red sensor eyes. He froze. They activated. The drones would attack anything alive. He whispered the warning, and the alien's eyes flashed. She stepped forward without hesitation. Reed raised his sidearm, but she waved him back with a gentle hum. Then she bent down and placed her hand on the drone's metal shell. Her glow spread across its surface in soft waves. The drone's red eyes blinked, then faded to dark. One by one, she moved along the row, silencing each machine with her glowing touch. Reed watched awed as she calmed the drones with an alien whisper that felt like warmth itself. When the last drone powered down, Reed exhaled. "Thank you," he said, voice low. She rose, dusting her hands on her torn dress. The hum faded, and her glow settled into a steady glow. Reed grabbed a heavy wrench from the floor and hefted it, checking the bay door controls. The door hissed as it slid open, revealing a shaft of starlight. Beyond lay the station's external deck, broken panels and twisted metal. Reed took one last look at the ruined bay, then faced his companion. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded, eyes bright with determination. He reached for her hand, and together they stepped out into the cold, vacuum-lit deck. Each footstep rang on the metal plates, echoing in the empty expanse. The station creaked, as if waking from a long sleep. Reed dared a glance back at the broken corridors behind them. Shadows hid horrors he would never know. But at his side stood the alien woman, her hum a steady comfort in the vast silence. He gripped her hand tighter, breath steady now. Ahead, the path to the escape pod waited another trial, another chance to survive. And he knew that with her by his side, even the darkest emptiness could feel a little less lonely. Asterisk. Reed and the aliens stepped onto the external deck, the cold vacuum of space pressing its silence against their suits. The station's broken panels carved jagged shadows across the metal floor, and distant stars winked through shattered windows. Reed's breath rattled in his throat as he led her toward the escape pod. By his boots clanged, echoing like distant thunder. The hum of the alien woman steadied him. Each soft note a reminder they were not alone. They reached the pod hatch, its control panel dark and lifeless. Reed frowned and tapped buttons. Nothing. Sparks danced beneath his gloved fingers, and he cursed under his breath. The hatch's locking mechanism was jammed, likely damaged when the station shook. He punched a few more commands, but the screen flickered and died. Behind him, the alien stepped closer, her glowing skin bright against the pod's dull gray. Reed swallowed, fighting frustration. He should fix this. Get in, get out. But the controls refused to respond. He backed away to inspect the hatch up. Closed torch beams slicing through the gloom. Beneath a panel, he spotted fractured coolant lines and exposed circuits. "I can't open it," he muttered. The alien knelt beside him, her hands moving over the metal plating. Reed watched, breath catching, as her glow pulsed in patterns, slow, rhythmic, deliberate. She pressed her palms against the hatch's edge, and her glow spread like ripples across water. The metal trembled beneath her touch, and the pipe above hissed as coolant rushed through fractured lines. A deep slurp sounded wet, urgent echoing in Reed's ear. He blinked in surprise as streams of green light seeped from the cracks around her palms. Alawa! The hatch panel vibrated, groaned, then slid open with a hiss of trapped air. Reed stepped back, eyes wide. "You did that?" he whispered, voice trembling. She rose, dusting her hands on her dress, humming softly. Her eyes flickered bright, and Red felt warmth spread through his chest, a mixture of awe and relief. They hurried inside the narrow pod corridor, the hatch sliding shut behind them with a final clang. Inside, warning lights blinked red, and the pod screen glowed with error messages. Reed slammed his fist on the console. "We need power to reset the systems," he said, voice urgent.
"Oh?"
The alien moved to the seating area and knelt, scanning the pod's core. He watched her slender fingers trace the wiring harness, her glow dipping as she focused. Sparks flickered where her hands made contact. The pod's low hum began to grow louder. Reed crossed to her side, handing her the scanner. The device beeped against her skin, life signs pulsing in green. She stared at it, then placed it gently on the console. He frowned. "You're using your energy," he said. "It's your life force, isn't it?" She looked up, eyes glowing brighter for a moment, and let out a soft, melodic tone. The pod's screens winked, then flared to life in pale blue. Alarms silenced, doors locked into place, engines powered up. Red exhaled, fingers trembling as he watched systems come alive. He stood and activated the launch sequence. The pod rumbled under them, lights shifting from red to green. Reed leant on the console, chest heaving. "Thank you," he said, voice thick with gratitude. The alien's glow softened, and she reached out, touching his arm. Reed felt the gentle vibration, her way of saying she was okay. He smiled, feeling a bond stronger than anything he'd known. Together, they braced for launch. The pod doors sealed, and the outer hatch opened. Space flowed into the sealed bay like a living thing. Reed gripped the launch lever 3, 2, 1 and pulled. The pod shot forward, blasting free of the station's wreckage. The hull rattled, then steadied as they cleared the debris field. Reed watched her in the control seat, her form framed by the viewport, eyes glowing with quiet triumph. A T pressed. A hand to the glass beside her, and she pressed back. Her glow bright against the darkness beyond. They soared into open space, bound for the nearest Starliner dock. Reed set course, voice calm as he addressed her. "I'll get you home," he promised. The alien woman hummed in agreement, the sound soft and warm in the pod's quiet cabin. Reed adjusted the throttle, feeling her glow pulse in time with the engines. Together, they left the dying station behind, one human and one alien, united by fear, by hope, and by a strange bond born in the shadow of destruction. Reed guided the pod through the docking tunnel, lights flashing on the control panel as the ship's systems hummed around them. The alien woman sat beside him, her glow dimmer than before, each pulse slower like a candle burning low. Reed glanced over, worry tightening his chest. She placed a hand on her side where the damage had been worst. He reached over gently, touching her fingers, and felt a faint tremor run through her palm. He docked the pod with a soft thunk, then eased them into a larger medical bay aboard the Starliner. Medbots whirred to life, sliding forward on silent wheels, arms unfolding with gentle lights. Reed stood, pulling off his helmet, and crossed to her side. Her eyes flickered as the bots circled, shining scanners and tiny needles poised. Knelt beside her, voice soft. "They'll help you heal," he said, but she only hummed low, a sad, pulsing tone that resonated in her chest. One medbot approached and brushed a cool gel over the torn fabric of her dress, revealing the pale, green skin beneath. Thin scars crisscrossed her hips and thighs, reminders of how she had saved him. Reed watched as the bot fed data to the Starliner's main computer, then turned to him, lights dimming when it sensed her weakened state. He held his breath as the alien's glimmer sank to a faint glow, her hum fading, placed his hand on the bot's sensor panel, overriding safety protocols. The medbot paused, then retreated, its arms folding. Reed leaned close. "No machines," he whispered, brushing a strand of her white hair aside. "Let me try." Her eyes met his, a soft flicker of trust. He gently laid a hand on her cheek, cool smooth skin under his glove hand, closed his eyes. He thought of home, of warm sunlight, of wind through trees, and let that image fill him. Then he pressed his palm to her side, where cracks in her light pulsed softly. A sudden shiver ran through her body, and her eyes widened, bright green sparks flaring. Reed felt a wave of energy surge through his arm, up to his shoulder, as though her life force wanted to travel between them. He swallowed, keeping his hand steady. Her hum grew louder, deep, vibrating in harmony with his heart. The room faded around him. He focused only on her warmth, her glow, and let his own calm spread into her. Her scars melted into faint lines of light, the torn edges of her dress mending as if woven by unseen hands. The hum reached a crescendo, then softened to a gentle Note, Reed opened his eyes to see her glow strong and even brighter than before. She pressed her cool palm against his glove, sharing a final pulse, then withdrew her hand. Her dress lay whole once more, her skin smooth. She sat up, a soft smile playing at her lips, eyes bright with relief. Reed exhaled, voice trembling. "You're safe now," he said. She tilted her head, then reached up and tapped the side of his helmet in thanks. He nodded, pride and awe swelling in his chest. She stood slowly, stretching limbs that were once broken, and spun in a circle. Exploring the bay with wide eyes, Reed offered his arm, and she slipped her hand into his elbow. Together, they walked toward the bay doors, stepping into the corridor where bright lights and busy crews bustled around them as they passed. Passengers paused to stare, some in fear, some in wonder, yet no one stopped them. Reed led her to a quiet observation deck with a broad viewport onto the stars. She looked out, reaching a hand toward the distant planets like old friends. Reed stood beside her, his own hand gently covering hers. She hummed softly again, a tone of gratitude and newfound hope. Reed smiled, whispering, "You have a place in this universe right here." Her eyes glowed steady, unafraid, and she leaned into him. Together, they watched the endless Sky-2 beings from different worlds, bound by courage, compassion, and a shared journey that had only just begun. Asterisk, the alien's name was Lyra, though Reed only learned it when she traced letters. On the viewport with glowing fingertips, he watched each symbol ripple in green light and felt a rush of wonder. She had a voice, a story beyond the station's walls. Together they stepped onto the observation deck, silent as drifting leaves, and Reed spoke softly. "Home," Lyra hummed, pointing to the blue planet below. Reed nodded. He still had days before his return flight, but he knew he couldn't leave her floating between worlds. He led her down gleaming corridors, past curious stairs, to the freight elevator. Inside, he pulled rank, securing a private berth for her in the Starliner's cargo hold. It wasn't much, but it was safe. She settled in, leaning against the padded wall, eyes bright with relief. Asterisk, Reed spent every free hour by her side, teaching her earth words, showing her holomages of forests, oceans, and bustling cities. She listened, absorbing each lesson like sunlight in thirsty soil. When he stumbled over pronunciation, she hummed encouragement. When she tried to repeat words, her soft accent made him smile.
Hey.
Their laughter echoed in the hold, a promise more powerful than any warning alarm on the ruined station. On the day before departure, Lyra's glow dimmed. Reed feared her energy was spent, but she only looked at him with calm eyes and raised a hand. He took it, and her glow pulsed one last time, steady, bright, full of life. Reed understood. She was ready to face Earth, ready to be seen. He helped her out of the freight hold and into the passenger terminal, where officials in crisp uniforms watched with cautious eyes. Reed stepped between them, arms outstretched. "She saved my life," he said plainly. "She has much to share." The officers exchanged glances, then nodded. Lyra's dress was repaired and neat, her hair braided in simple loops. Forward with dignity, head held high, its metal doors slid open onto a balcony overlooking the planet's curve. Reed stood beside her and pulled off his helmet. The warm breeze carried the scent of rain and pine. He exhaled, filling his lungs with hope. Lyra raised a hand and let the wind sift through her hair, her green glow reflecting in the sunlit air. She whispered a word soft, musical, and read, felt it in his chest. They watched the horizon together, two souls linked by fear, by peril, and by trust. When the transport craft arrived, Reed wrapped an arm around her shoulders. She leaned in, humming a low note of gratitude and farewell. He pressed a final kiss to her hair and said, "Find your place here, Lyra. I'll see you again." Boarded the shuttle, he looked back once. Lyra stood alone on the balcony, glowing softly in the morning light. He raised a hand and she answered with a bright pulse. Then he turned forward to a future forever changed by one alien's touch, one human's compassion, and the bond that crossed the stars.